Today, I'm going to share with you how to supercharge your tomato plants to grow more tomatoes and not leaves with 5 easy tips. The first tip is you'll want to prune and trellis your tomato plants. You want to start trellising the main tomato stem before the fruits get heavy, because if they get too heavy, they could weigh the stem down and snap it. The way I trellis my tomatoes is using a string trellis. Then what you want to do is get some of these tomato clips. This part here has the tiny groove which you can see, and then what you do with it is you take it, put it on the string so that it holds it, and then you just clip it together like that, and now you have it connected to the tomato trellis. The clips can be placed every 6 to 12 inches going up the main stem. You'll also want to add an extra clip where you have a set of tomatoes growing, then it will support the weight of the fruits. With growing tomatoes like this, you'll also want to keep it to one single stem going all the way up the trellis. And what it means is that the armpit of the plant, there will be occasionally 2 branches coming off from the main stem. One will be at 90 degrees and then another will be at 45 degrees angled up toward the sky from the same spot in the stem. The ones that are 45s, pinch those ones off. Pruning your tomato plants will prevent them from growing too wild and will concentrate the effort into producing bigger fruits because they won't have as many fruits to deal with. My second tip is my best tip for growing tomatoes. Tomatoes like a rich, well-amended soil, and adding manure to your tomatoes is the best thing you could do for them. When we add manure to our plants, what we found is that they grow fast and more healthy, and we get more tomatoes from them as a result. I use composted cow manure, but other people will use sheep manure or chicken manure, and that'll be fine. Now, when adding manure for your tomato plants, a simple test that you could do to make sure it's safe is to grab a handful and give it a good sniff. If it smells like rich soil, that means that it's safe to use for your plants and that it's fully composted. If it kind of stinks, then it could burn the roots of your plants and you wouldn't want to use it on them. The third tip is burying the stems of your plants. When you bury the stems of your tomato plants, it will create a stronger root system for a more healthier and more productive plant that gives you more fruits. A lot of people think that by burying your tomato, they will grow roots from all the hairs that are on the sides of this stem. And it's a common myth.
Now don't rush too fast in the comments to say I'm wrong,
because I'm going to dig up a plant in just a moment for us to see. These tomatoes were planted almost exactly 2 weeks ago on May 18th. This first bottom piece you're seeing here is where the original root ball was when we planted them. And all the rest that is going up to here is new roots that the tomato has grown. And what I also found is that I could still see the tiny hairs on this piece of the stem here because they don't grow into roots. The hairs of the stem is called the trichome. The bumps that you see near the base of the stems are called adventitious roots. The fourth tip is don't water your tomato plants. What it means is you don't want to water the plant. You're only aiming to try wet by the roots because disease and fungus from the soil spreads quickly to wet leaves. If there is not enough water, your tomato plants will not grow big and the fruits won't be very tasty either. But when they do have enough water, they will grow like weeds and could get even taller than you. Some people also say that allowing the soil to dry out more than you would before watering will encourage them to flower more and produce more fruits. Tomatoes like to be watered about every 3 days. When the fruits begin to ripen, you want to make sure to stay consistent with your watering. Because if you forget about them and then you try to give them a nice deep soaking, some of the ripening fruits will crack. Putting down this layer of mulch will keep the soil moisture consistent and help reduce fruit splitting. Tweaker would like it if you guys peck some likes in the comments for her. Tweaker. She likes eating the lettuce that's growing here. The next tip is that tomatoes loves heat, and that means a couple of things. One is to not rush planting your tomatoes out too early in the spring because tomatoes are a cold sensitive plant. Ideally, tomatoes shouldn't be planted until the temperatures are above 25 during the daytime. Originally, tomatoes came from the Andean region in South America, which just goes to show that they are a heat and warm loving crop. It also means that planting a tomato by the warm wall of your house or in a greenhouse it will make your tomato grow much faster because the extra heat that is being captured by your house will radiate back onto your plant at night. Now before you leave, I also wanted to share with you some extra bonus tips. The sixth one is to protect your tomatoes because when the tomatoes start to ripen, friends are ready for you to share. Investing in a fencing setup like the one that I have here will stop deer, squirrel, rabbits, and raccoons from getting to your tomato plants. And if you have birds, you'll also want to use an insect netting, which I'll leave a link to that you could use for your tomatoes. The seventh tip is don't wait for the first fruit of the season to ripen. Pick your tomatoes early and do it often. You could pick tomatoes while they're still not fully ripened at the breaker stage. Harvesting tomatoes at the breaker stage will help the plants in two ways. The first way is that instead of waiting for your first tomato of the season to fully vine ripen, by plucking it off early at the breaker stage, it will signal to the plants to start cranking out more fruits. The second reason to pick tomatoes at the breaker stage is that tomatoes will actually refuse to ripen when the temperatures get too hot for an extended period of time. The breaker stage for tomatoes is when they are about a third to half of the tomato starts to change color to red or whatever the variety color is when the tomato is fully ripened. So if you harvest it at that point, you won't lose any nutrition and it will taste the same as if you had picked it as a vine ripened tomato. I hope you learned a lot. If you want to see our full guide on how to prune and trellis your tomatoes in 9 minutes, then watch this video here. Goodbye!